New year, fresh start, time to recreate myself. What will I find when I walk down this path? New friends, new goals, new challenges to be met. I will meet them and I am going to succeed. New year, fresh start, it's time for self-discovery.
Episode 2. An Unexpected Hero.
Well, that could have certainly been worse.
With a casual stroll, Noah passed through the front gates of Arceados Academy. Despite the brief flight of panic and discomfort, his first day had actually been quite pleasant. The students he had come in contact with brimmed with an infectious sense of energy and wild wonder, for an infinite string of possibilities laid before them. Noah grinned as he walked down the sidewalk. He stopped, though, when he noticed a man across the street. The man wore a black trench coat, a wide-brimmed black hat, and a pair of dark sunglasses. He stood in the mouth of an alleyway between two buildings, and moments before, the man had been staring at the school. As Noah noticed him, though, the man pivoted and ran deeper into the alley. Noah stared after him for a moment, but then started walking again. His blood had chilled considerably, and he found himself gripping the handle of his briefcase tighter. Could that man have been looking for him? Surely not. Noah had been extremely careful, and there was no reason other than the minor incident with the students earlier that would even hint at what Noah dare not say. Perhaps that was it. Perhaps that man was a hired muscle working for one of the purest mage-blood families. Then again, the stranger could have been stalking someone else. Noah's spine wiggled inside his skin, and the notion that one of the innocent students was being targeted brought about grim imagery. He would simply have to let Miss Vothuis know about the man tomorrow. When Miss Vothuis hired him for the teaching position, she had recommended getting an apartment near the school. While this was a great idea, the last thing Noah wanted was to be close to anyone who might grow too suspicious of him or his roommate Samuel. Many of the apartments and houses close to the school were upscale and populated by wealthy mage-blood families. Such neighborhoods didn't really suit either Noah or Samuel. Or rather, stuffy frou-frou mage-bloods and their stuck-up communities didn't suit Samuel. By no means was their current apartment bad. It just wasn't up to Samuel's standards. However, since Samuel got to choose the accommodations the last time, it was only fair for the sly fox to grin and bear Noah's selection. Arceados Academy was located in the small city of Laffen, and by many accounts, it was one of the country's best-kept secrets. One reason for its unfamiliarity on the national stage was due to the large population of unique individuals who lived here. According to the pamphlet that Miss Vothuis had given him during his orientation, a powerful ritual had been enacted centuries ago that affected normal, non-magical humans who lived in, passed through, or visited Laffen. Any knowledge gained about the magical races, spells, and/or Arceados Academy itself dissolved from the normal humans' minds like melting snow. The ritual used for Arceados Academy's protection and secrecy wasn't exclusive to Laffen. Miss Vothuis said that there were cities all over the world with similar arcane setups. Laffen itself had a population of about 50,000 people, and it was nestled 20 miles away from the nearest mountain range, and 40 miles away from the closest major city. Aside from the supernatural races and families, Laffen was like any other small city/big town one might find. All in all, it was a nice, slow-paced city, which was a nice change compared to where Noah and Samuel used to live. On his walk to work that morning, Noah had passed by an empty playground. As the fading sunlight slowly retracted from the land, about a dozen children jumped and jostled on the various playground equipments. Their parents sat on benches and either idly watched their children, or they played on their phones. Several blocks down from the lively park stood a collection of several tall apartment buildings. Each of the buildings had about 10 floors, were made from dull red brick, and had dozens and dozens of wide-set windows across the sides. Even from this distance, Noah felt the subtle traces of Heliotian auras rippling on the air. These 4 apartment buildings had formed into a semi-famous neighborhood affectionately referred to as Little Helos. As the name suggested, most of the tenants who lived in those buildings were Heliotians, which meant devils or demons. Noah's apartment was a mile away from Little Helos, toward the edge of town. His building was a 2-story structure with 10 units on each floor. Most of the apartments were vacant. And in fact, Noah and Samuel didn't have neighbors on either side of them or in the unit below them. All of the apartments had exterior doors. Railroad tracks ran beside the apartment buildings, perhaps 1,000 feet away. The only train that passed by his place were long-distance passenger trains, making their way past the little sleepy town of Laffen. Rent was fairly inexpensive, all things considered. Noah climbed the rusty stairs leading toward the second floor, and he made his way to the apartment door. He opened it and then stepped inside.
Honey, I'm home.
Motherfucker, what did I tell you about all that honey shit? If we have to go over this shit again, I'm gonna break my paw off in your ass.
Noah closed the front door as a medium dog-sized fox sauntered out of one of the bedrooms. The fox had a bright orange coat with a considerable white patch of fur just under his chin, and the patch covered the front of his chest as well. A pair of large ears perked off of the vulpine skull, and the fox's rich brown eyes studied Noah with more than a bit of curiosity. His bushy tail whipped about with slight agitation.
Now see what you going and done, man? You pissed off my tail. What you gotta say for yourself? And why you late? I've been waiting for my dinner, man.
Noah moved over to one of the 2 couches that rested in the main room of the apartment, and he plopped down on it. A small, circular coffee table stood between the couches. Dozens of books lined the bookshelf against the far wall. A flat-screen television hung on the wall in such a way that it could be viewed from anywhere in the room. Fox fur covered the couch that Noah wasn't sitting on.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to meet with the headmistress after school.
Why? Why did you get in trouble? It was only your first day. What the hell did you do?
I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I used some of my magic to break up a fight.
Samuel hopped up on the other couch, his couch, and then he started to make himself comfortable.
You risk getting discovered to stop a fight. Are you fucking stupid? How many people were in the fight?
Well, I think 11 on one side and maybe 9 or so on the other. I don't remember exactly. It all happened so fast.
The fox smiled and then barked out a quick laugh. His tail slapped against the arm of the couch in an excited fashion.
Oh, shit. That wasn't a fight. That was a battle. That makes more sense. Still, you need to watch it with the magic. I still think you teaching at that school is a bad idea.
The pay is pretty good, and I get my weekends off, theoretically.
But is it worth getting found? You playing a dangerous game. I wouldn't care as much if it was just your bitch ass that was at risk, but it's not. This involves me too, motherfucker. You need to act more carefully for both our asses.
I'm being careful.
Says the dumbass motherfucker who used magic to stop a fight. So how did you stop the fight exactly?
Noah averted his eyes, but he couldn't hide his growing smile. A warbled giggle slipped past his lips.
Tick-tock, motherfucker. Give me an answer.
Well, I used my magic to conjure a bunch of chains and shackles, latch onto the students, and then I restrained and pinned them in place.
For a long moment, Samuel just stared at Noah, with all the judgment and weight the universe could muster. Noah had to fight the urge not to bust out laughing hysterically.
What?
So help me understand. You used some kinky BDSM type shit on some students. And they didn't fire and arrest your nasty ass?
It wasn't kinky.
You conjured a bunch of chains and shackles to latch onto students. And then you restrained and pinned them in place.
His tail smacked against the couch again.
And you just gonna play it off like it isn't some repressed type shit. Really, bitch?
Noah couldn't help it. He simply had to bend over and holler with continuous laughter. All the while, Samuel just sat on the other couch with the most intense, judgy eyes. When Noah regained his composure, he beamed at Samuel.
I didn't mean for it to be that way.
You a motherfucking artificer. You can make anything you want, and you only limited by your own imagination. I've been rolling with you for decades, and I've seen some crazy ass shit you created on the fly. Most of it has been fucking beautiful, so it's clear that you know your stuff. Help me understand why you needed chains and shackles.
It was the first thing that popped into my head.
And you know why that is.
Why?
Samuel hopped off of the couch, but he looked at Noah.
It's cause you're a motherfucking freak. I keep telling you that you need to get some ass, ASAP.
The fox casually moved to one of the bedrooms. His bedroom, to be exact.
And where are you going?
Where does it look like, motherfucker? I'ma go lie down while you make dinner. You better hurry up, cause I'm hungry.
Noah simply chuckled. Noah shivered a little as the brisk morning air tickled his exposed skin. Classes at Arceados Academy began at 8 a.m. sharp, and to ensure that he had plenty of time, Noah left his apartment by 6 a.m. Latham's streets were pretty empty at that time of day, which gave the city a kind of solemn ambiance that gently seduced Noah's restless soul. This place was peaceful, unexciting, and intoxicatingly comforting. To be honest, Noah could totally see himself settling down and spending the rest of his days in a place just like this. Noah drew in a deep breath, and the minty chill of the air invigorated his lungs.
Today will be better. No one's really going to care about yesterday, and they'll be more focused on whatever the next thing is.
Noah walked past the 4 looming buildings that made up Little Hellos. Only a few lights were in the many windows. Yesterday, he had left closer to 6:45, and the Hellotian community had been much more alert, with many more lights in the windows. It was funny what a difference a 45 minutes actually made. Noah strolled down a hill and glanced across the street toward a small mom-and-pop diner that he had seen yesterday. It wasn't opened for business at the moment, but yesterday when it was quite busy. Most of the patrons he had seen there were students from the school. The diner was called Cho's Counter, and it had a large white sign with blue lettering above its door. Too bad that place wasn't opened. With all the rushing and excitement that morning, Noah hadn't had the chance to make himself breakfast. Thank the light he actually got to have a cup of coffee. As Noah rounded a corner, someone collided into him with significant force. He fell to the ground, and it took a moment for him to sit back up. Noah wasn't hurt or anything, but he certainly felt a vibrant bubble of embarrassment ripple inside him. A young woman dressed in an Arceados Academy student uniform sat up beside him on the street. At the moment, she held her head with her hand, and a slight pained expression painted her face. The young woman wore a bright blue hijab that obscured her hair and neck. She had a set of wide, sparkling green eyes and well-trimmed black eyebrows. The young woman also wore the required uniform as well. Noah's heart lurched inside his chest, and he opened his mouth to speak.
Are you all right, miss?
The young woman sat up a little straighter and then gazed at Noah.
Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to knock you over. Are you okay?
Noah got to his feet and extended a hand down to the student. Despite his offer, she stood up on her own and straightened and wiped off her skirt.
I'm fine. Are you all right, miss?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just a little clumsy sometimes.
You're a student at Arceados Academy, right? I can tell by your uniform.
The student paused for a moment and then glanced at Noah with apparent intrigue. It wasn't like the apprehensive stares that Noah had received from some of the other students yesterday, but more curious and pleasantly innocent.
Are you a teacher there, by chance?
Yes. My name is Mr. Cruz.
The student gave him a small bow.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Cruz. My name is Kachina El Amin.
Kachina bent down and collected her dropped briefcase and sack lunch. Her briefcase was a small, thin, black leather accessory that no doubt carried assignments and such.
Please excuse me. I have to get to school soon because I'm on the opening ceremony committee. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Cruz.
Kachina started running down the sidewalk that led toward the school. Noah followed in the same direction, albeit at a slower, more relaxed pace. When Noah finally arrived at the school, he took note of how quiet and serene the hallways were. Unlike yesterday, very few students had arrived yet. The air lacked the urgency of wonder, the dread of angst, or the hustle and bustle of excited youths. Noah entered the teacher's offices and started walking toward his desk. As soon as he entered, though, a great and foreboding quiet fell over the other teachers. They all looked at him with wide eyes. Eyes that cringed in the face of, yet secretly hungered for something bad to happen. However, one teacher in particular looked a lot different than the rest. Rather than have sympathetic eyes, her irises vibrated with absolute fiery rage. She was a young woman with long, dark brown hair that was almost black. Her violet-colored eyes marked her as something otherworldly, as did the magical aura of her spirit. She was a demon. The woman wore a long-sleeved white blouse, a bright red skirt, and a pair of heels. A wicked snarl had been carved into her face. As soon as Noah entered the offices, she started vigorously moving toward him. She met Noah at his desk. The woman spoke as Noah placed his briefcase on the flat of his desk. Gregor, who was sitting at his desk, turned all the way around so his back was facing both Noah and the woman.
Hey, you! You're the new teacher, aren't you?
Yes, I'm Noah.
The woman balled her fists and took a strong step toward Noah. Her eyes started glowing with a faint, dark black and red hue.
Oh, so then you're the one who used magic on some of our demon students. That is unacceptable!
Her voice rose several octaves, and the entire teacher's office grew even more saturated with uneasy anticipation and grim excitement. The demon teacher poked him in the chest, hard.
I had better not ever hear about you doing that shit again. Otherwise, you and I are going to have problems.
I already had this discussion with Headmistress Darboux.
The demon teacher's eyes hardened, and she bared her teeth at him.
Great! You dealt with her. Now,
You're dealing with me.
If I didn't cast my spell, one of the students would have been dead. I don't know if you know this, but 2 of the mage bloods...
oh, I'm fully aware of that. I plan to address that bullshit with the families of those little pricks this afternoon. The fact that you saved one of my students is the only thing that's keeping me from demanding your immediate dismissal. There's something I want to ask you.
Oh? And what's that?
The demon teacher's eyes grew harder and more piercing.
What language did you cast your spells in?
A greasy, acidic wetness had splashed all over Noah's heart. Every time it beat within him, the disgusting sensation grew more powerful.
Why does that matter?
It matters because no one seems to know what language you've spoken.
It's unsettling to the students involved, the greater population of the student body, and frankly, some of the teachers, myself included.
I speak 12 different languages, and I can cast spells in all of them, if I really wanted to.
Maybe so, but I have it on good authority that that language you used isn't one of the 8 primary languages used by the general magic-using population. The student in your class, Nosa Bagento, is an honor student, and she knows all 8 of them.
If you retaliate on her, I promise they'll never find your body.
I'll tell you the same thing I told Headmistress Darboux. I don't remember the language I used. It all happened so fast.
For a long moment, the demon teacher glared into his eyes. Noah's soul squirmed a little, but he didn't break eye contact with her.
Next time, let the SHMA members handle it. There are few situations where teachers need to use spells that powerful against the student body.
The demon teacher walked past Noah, and as she did, she drove her shoulder into his. The young woman was much stronger than she looked, and Noah nearly lost his footing. As she moved farther away, Noah could have sworn she let out a victorious, amused chuckle. Gregor pivoted his chair around, stood up beside Noah, and watched the demon teacher leave the offices. The larger man patted Noah on the shoulder.
Congratulations, you just met Kazuna Miyoshi.
Noah exited the teacher's offices and then moved through the throng of students. It was such a subtle thing at first, and to be honest, he didn't notice it until he made it to the doorway of his class. The students had gradually stopped their conversations as they noticed him, and they stared at him with wide, concerned eyes. When Noah turned to regard those looking at him, the students quickly averted their gazes and tried to pretend that they were deep in conversation. A seedy, slick film had formed in the base of his stomach, and it gave off volts of anxious energy. When he stepped into his classroom, the students froze where they sat or stood and gaped at him. Some of the students had wider expressions than others.
Good morning, class. I trust that everyone is having a good day.
No one said anything, and those who were standing up gravitated to their seats. The air was heavy, and the pressure radiating from the students stabbed into Noah's pores like invisible arrows. His dry throat crackled as he built up the spit in the back of his throat and then swallowed it. Even though this had been their first official meeting, it seemed that Noah's notoriety had made its way around the student body.
My name is Noah Cruz, and this is Demonic Language 2. Since this isn't a beginner class, I'd like to see where you all are at.
He took out a dry erase marker from the desk and started writing on the board in Demonic.
You have until the end of class to compose a brief rough draft about your future goals in Demonic only.
A brief moment passed, and then the students silently got out their papers and pens. Noah sat down at the desk in the front of the class, and he observed the students as they worked. More than a few of them peeked up at him with agitated and cautious expressions. As soon as they noticed Noah looking at them, they plunged back into their papers. A loud explosion rocked the classroom walls, followed by a crash and smashing of glass and stone. The crash originated from outside. Noah moved to the window, as did all of the other students. For a brief moment, the tension between them was forgotten, and they were all spectators. Their room, B1, was on the second floor, and the commotion was on the ground floor. 5 students stood in the yard between the buildings, and 4 of them surrounded a single student in the middle. Each of the 4 students had glowing hands, eyes, and other signs of charged magic. The student in the center was none other than the young man Noah had seen on the first day. The demon male student wore a mask of anger, and thin orange lines of magical power scattered across his cheeks and temples. Noah winced. A large hole stood ajar in the side of the building, right across from Noah's class window, only a story below. The teacher of the first floor's class screamed out for help, and the other students started to filter out so they could get a better view. Noah's mind raced, and he opened the window.
Oh shit, he's gonna do something.
This is gonna be awesome!
Noah's blood chilled, and he stopped himself. A breeze blew in from the window and tousled his short black hair. He swallowed hard. From the corner of Noah's eye, he caught the entirety of his class. Rather than look outside, they gaped at him with hungry expressions.
Look! The SHMA just showed up.
A dozen students wearing black armbands charged into the area, some from the hole in the wall, some from the windows of other classes, and a few appearing out of thin air.
Restrain them!
The SHMA members waved their hands and mouthed words that Noah obviously couldn't hear. Intricate magical circles of energy formed underneath each of the 5 students, and hovering magenta-colored balls popped into existence around them too. Lines connected each of the balls, and the lines warped around the bodies of the 5 students. Suddenly, a female student wearing a bright blue hijab stepped forward and screamed out,
Please, it's not his fault. He was just protecting me.
Several of the SHMA members approached her and they spoke briefly. A moment later, one of them snapped their fingers, and the fighting students trapped within the magical circles faded into nothingness. The other SHMA members started ushering the students back into the gaping hole.
Okay, let's get back to work, everyone.
He went back to the desk, but he left the window open.
Oh, Mr. Cruz, over here! Please, follow me.
Noah just entered the large gymnasium, along with the hundreds of other students, when Miss Vaughtheis waved him down. Fold-out chairs had been set out for the student body to sit in, and a large section of the rows closer to the makeshift stage had been specially marked off with light blue streamers. Miss Vaughtheis walked up to Noah, and a bright grin covered her face.
We're gonna have you up on stage with us.
With us?
Yeah, the headmistress plans to introduce you to the entire student body. You know, since you're the new linguistics teacher, and also so she can make a formal statement about your valiant actions on yesterday.
Wild tensions exploded in his stomach, and the events that unfolded that morning replayed in his mind. How many other teachers and students harbored the same level of discomfort as the loud-ass demon teacher, Miss Kazuna Miyoshi? Was what he did really that bad? Well, obviously it was if the headmistress planned on making a statement about it. Headmistress Darboux did say that more than a few Mageblood families were upset, and clearly the Heliotian students were anxious about the unknown nature of his spell. This was a fine mess he had put himself into. That was for sure. Miss Vaughtheis led Noah up to and up the stairs leading toward the makeshift stage. She gestured toward one of the 3 chairs positioned just left of the podium. Specifically, she directed him to sit in the middle seat. Miss Vaughtheis sat to the right of him, and the other chair remained unoccupied for the moment. More students filtered into the gym and they took their seats. The youngest-looking students collected in the seats marked off by the streamers, while the older and more seasoned ones sat at the very back. The teachers stood around the perimeter of the gym like wardens in a prison. Numerous conversations radiated among the crowd, but they all died down. Headmistress Darboux stepped into the gym. She stayed at the door, and she gave the students a cool, crisp stare. The conversations died almost instantly, and everyone regarded her. Once it was completely silent, the headmistress walked over to the stairs leading up to the makeshift stage. Her heels clip-clopped against the wood of the gym floor, and in the absence of all other noise, they were deafening. The headmistress moved with all the grace and poise one might expect from an empress. To Noah's surprise, even the first years remained quiet in the presence of the esteemed administrator. Headmistress Darboux waltzed over to the empty seat, sat down, and watched the crowd of students. Not once did her irises ever divert, especially not to look at Noah, who openly looked at her. After a moment, she nodded toward a young female student who stood by the stage stairs. The young woman had bleached blonde hair, dark tan skin, and a pair of sparkling blue eyes. She practically bounced when she climbed up the stairs and took her place behind the podium.
Greetings, student body of Arceados Academy. I'm so excited to be standing before you today. We're going to have a great year. My name is...
A pair of students caught Noah's attention. The male demon student who had been picked on the first day, and who got in the fight today sat within the section marked off for the first years. His face was contorted with rage and frustration, and he let his eyes fall downcast. The second student sat a couple of rows behind him, and she looked at the first with sorrowful eyes. It was the young woman, Kachina El-Amen. His attention whipped to his left as Headmistress Darboux rose from her seat and approached the podium. A sense of unyielding stiffness and alertness fell over the student body, even with the more experienced upper-class students.
For those of you who are returning, let me congratulate you on the start of another year of growth, maturation, and development. Let me also remind you that this is a haven for learning, not a battleground to hash out old hatreds and new vexations. As with the start of every year at Arceados Academy, we have had a few instances of poor behavior. It is imperative that you set a good example for those who have just started their journeys here. For those who have knowingly disrupted the serenity and sanctity of our school after hearing this same warning from previous years, punishments have been and will continue to be swift, severe, but fair.
The headmistress shifted her gaze to where the first-year students were seated.
Now that has been addressed, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Headmistress Mallory Darboux. Welcome to Arceados Academy. We are most pleased to have you join us.
Many of the first-year students, including both Kachina El-Amen and the male demon students, smiled.
Now, as many of you know, there was an incident where a teacher had to intervene to stop a rather vicious brawl between students. As with most schools within the arcane educational system, the Student Hall Monitor Association, or SHMA for short, usually addresses and administers to any outbreaks of boorish behavior. In the absence of SHMA members, our faculty members are permitted to act, if necessary, to prevent serious and fatal consequences. Please be confident in the fact that we, as faculty and administrators, have your best interests at heart and are here to protect and guide you.
All at once, hundreds of pairs of eyes shifted to Noah.
Yes, this is that teacher.
The headmistress gestured for Noah to stand, and so he did.
This is Mr. Noah Cruz, and he is Arceados Academy's newest linguist teacher. Please assist me in welcoming him to our institution. He will be a valuable member of our faculty.
Headmistress Darboux started off with giving Noah a weak clap, and Miss Vatheis offset that with a more vigorous and loud sort of applause. Only a small minority of the student body actually complied and gave him a welcome. As soon as the applause died completely, the headmistress gestured for him to sit back down. She began speaking about other various aspects of the school's policies, procedures, and etc. before his butt had even hit the flat of his chair. While many observed her with interest, many students gave Noah hard, calculating gazes. The assembly ended, and the students were dismissed to their afternoon classes. Noah rose to leave the stage, but the headmistress held up a hand.
Mr. Cruz, would you mind staying for a moment? I have a request.
Wild static anxiety buzzed within Noah's stomach, as if it contained a massive and angry storm cloud. The air was hot and stagnant, and the fading sunlight flowed into the nearly empty classroom through the windows. Shades of orange blanketed over Noah and the male demon student from earlier. He sat in one of the desks in the middle of the room while Noah sat at the teacher's desk. The young man just kept staring at Noah angrily, which only intensified the unease that blossomed within him. Detention had started 20 minutes prior, and neither he nor the young man had said anything. Rather than risk another altercation, the Mageblood students who had been involved in the fight were serving detention with another teacher in another part of the school. It was to Noah's understanding that Miss Miyoshi had strongly volunteered to oversee their experience. For the Mageblood's safety, she was denied that request.
Do I make you nervous, sir?
What? No, not really. I just hate awkward situations.
Why is this awkward for you? Would it be any less weird if I were a Mageblood?
You being a demon student has nothing to do with the awkwardness. It's awkward because you're clearly mad at me for something. I just don't know what.
The young man averted his eyes.
It's not something you did. It's the way you react to me.
What do you mean?
The young man didn't look at Noah, and yet his eyes grew harder. His fists balled on the table, and he frowned.
Come on. If you have something you'd like to say it. You won't get in trouble. What is said will remain between us.
Slowly, the young man drifted his attention up to Noah and locked gazes with him.
I mean it.
You're a racist.
1,000 invisible needles stabbed into Noah's skin all over his body. Rage born of white-hot will started to rise up in Noah's insides, and yet he kept it down and concealed. Noah Cruz was many things, but racist was not one of them. The notion of being connected to that kind of hate caused horrid ripples to resonate within him, though.
Why do you say that?
You're obviously not used to being around demons, but I'm used to being around your kind. I noticed the look you've given me, both yesterday when we met and when I came for detention. I've seen it 1,000,000 times from other Magebloods. Your scorn and disapproval are easy to spot. Just because you're not outright persecuting me or other demons doesn't mean that you're not just as terrible or judgmental as those bastards I got in a fight with earlier.
Did you fight them because they were picking on you? No. There was a girl you were protecting, wasn't there? She came out after the SHMA members showed up. Is she a demon too?
No, she isn't. But that doesn't matter to me. Those guys wouldn't stop harassing her, so I did something to stop them when the teacher wouldn't.
A small smile spread across Noah's face.
That was really brave of you. I'm impressed.
I don't care about your approval. Kachina is really nice, and she doesn't deserve to be tormented by stupid asshole Magebloods like you.
Like me. And what did I do to earn the title of asshole?
The young man stood up and pointed at Noah.
You used a powerful spell against demons to restrain them. That was overboard and it was uncalled for. Everybody's talking about it.
I used the spell on everyone in the fight. Not just the demon students. I'm really sorry that Magebloods have been so cruel to you and your kind. They aren't all bad though. And most are actually great people.
That's bullshit and you're...
The young man's eyes widened.
What's the matter?
The young man sat back down in his seat. The rage and ire that he had been maintaining died away, and he simply gaped at Noah with a renewed sense of wonder.
They?
At first, Noah just stared at the young man, but then recognition swirled about his mind like a tornado. He felt his own eyes widen, and that sparked something within the young demon boy's eyes. He sat forward in his seat. Where once rage existed, only curiosity reigned.
Are you not a mage?
Noah held up a hand and spoke somewhat quickly.
This isn't something we're going to discuss. You mentioned before that the girl's racial identity doesn't matter to you. Did you mean it?
The young man nodded.
With that same regard, is it right to assume that my racial identity doesn't matter either?
The only people I don't like are Magebloods.
Is that because they are racist to you? Or is there a specific reason that you loathe them?
Isn't that reason enough? If someone shows anger and hatred to me, then don't I have a right to be angry and hate them back?
Thinking that way perpetuates an endless cycle of animosity and rage. Someone has to stop the cycle, or it will continue spreading throughout the generations.
Why does it have to be me? Why do I have to be the bigger person?
Why not you?
The young man just sat there, and he averted his eyes again. His mouth formed a contested frown. After a few seconds, though, he looked back up at Noah.
Well... How come you still showed me the same kinds of looks that racist magebloods usually show demons? Just because you're not mageblood doesn't mean you're not an anti-demonite.
For one, if I was an anti-demonite, why would I be so versed in demonic? For two, this is between you and I, right?
It took a moment for the young man to nod.
I'll admit, I am often a little nervous around demons and devils. Once upon a time, I had to fight against a great number of them. Demons and devils are quite formidable. I don't want to get into it because it doesn't matter now. I fought magebloods, djinns, dragons, and many other things in my lifetime. And I am often nervous around many different sorts of folks.
The young man's eyes grew wider, and his mouth fell ajar slightly.
Remember, this is between us. What's your name?
Seto. Seto Gaizo.
Well, I'm Mr. Cruz, and I'm not your enemy.
Noah stood up and gestured toward the door of the classroom.
How about this? Since you got detention for doing something noble, let's just end the day early.
Are you serious?
Yes, but remember, what we said here is between us. Okay?
Seto nodded and collected his things.
Thank you.
Seto exited the classroom first, but he stopped in the hallway. Noah stepped out behind him. Kachina El-Amin had been sitting against the wall outside of the classroom, but she jumped to her feet when Seto came out.
Kachina, what are you still doing here?
Kachina's shoulders hunched up a little and a goofy kind of grin covered her face. She hadn't even reacted to Noah's emergence from the room. Likewise, Seto gazed upon her with a sense of fascination. His eyes sparkled a little more brightly, and his cheeks reddened a little. Kachina fumbled with her fingers.
I wanted to wait with you. Since, you got in trouble because of me.
It wasn't your fault. I chose to fight those bastards. Those mageblood purist pricks think they can just do whatever they want without anyone doing anything back? Well, they're wrong. The next time, they won't get off so lucky.
A sudden grim realization blossomed within Noah's mind, and it sent sick vibrations throughout his body.
I don't want you to get hurt, though.
I'm a proud demon. I'm not scared of a bunch of weak-ass magebloods. Don't worry about me. It's gotten pretty late. Can I walk you home?
That would be great.
And just like that, the pair of students strode away. Noah watched them for a moment longer before he wandered away on his own. Unnerving tension zapped into his thoughts. There would be a next time for Seto, and it might come sooner rather than later.